Hello. Uh, Last three episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark's original run. Today I have nearly 3 pages of notes for them because I just thought I usually try to keep it to 2 episodes per side of a sheet of paper, but I thought this is the last time. I'm just going to make sure that I get everything and I don't have to write anything in the margins. Before I get to them, as usual, you can buy this at the link below in the description. Yeah, that's me. As you know, the YouTube channel is also called by my name, uh, and uh, and yeah, it's fun. It'll make a good Christmas present. But if you're already looking ahead to Valentine's Day, it's Cupid, so even better for Valentine's Day, arguably. But you can buy it in advance. Um, $9.99 for paperback and $4.99 on Kindle or free if you have Kindle Unlimited. And I don't mind if you get it for free if you have Kindle Unlimited, uh, just so long as you read it and maybe say something nice about it somewhere on the internet where people will see what you've said. And really, there's nowhere on the internet that people say things that other people don't then see them. Also, I just want to mention I just started rereading this book, The Haunted House, and there will be a full blog response to this. It says Charles Dickens, and I bought it because I thought I have to start reading Charles Dickens. I think I bought it in high school. I know I bought it in high school, probably, I think senior year, and I thought I should start reading Charles Dickens, but for some reason I didn't want to start with Oliver Twist or A Christmas Carol, and this is a nice slim volume, about as slim as Cupid Takes a Holiday. And then I went to read it. I opened it up. I didn't do this in the bookstore. I opened it up to read it, and I found the table of contents, which has all of these other authors, including one of my favorites, Wilkie Collins, and also Elizabeth Gaskell, and Dickens himself, contributing stories, and others as well. It is also a Christmas themed book. The conceit is that the Dickens character is staying at a haunted house, and he invites his friends to come stay at the house and over the Christmas holiday, and then talk about the ghosts that they meet in the rooms that they're staying in. And now you can probably see why I am just making special note of. I happen to be reading this at the same time as I'm finishing up watching Are You Afraid of the Dark, which is about a group of friends who get together in a somewhat spooky place in the woods with a fire going, and they tell each other not always ghost stories, but they try to scare each other. Um, the book is both the kind of thing that I would hope one day to do, invite my friends to stay in a big haunted house, and then we all get together and tell stories, and also the sort of thing that I would love to do as a literary figure, create a framing device along those lines, and have friends of mine contribute stories. It just seems like a fun exercise, and I hope one day to do it. I have a lot of writer friends. Anyway, where am I starting? Okay, last three episodes, and not necessarily in chronological order, as I found out. Now, Paramount Plus and Wikipedia seem to have different ideas about the order in which these episodes aired, and it turns out that the order in which they are set up on Paramount Plus might be more accurate as far as where the story ends, and I'll get to why, but not necessarily when they originally aired. And I just because Paramount Plus also didn't have all of them, I trust the Wikipedia list more as far as the order in which I want to watch them. It says that the last three aired February 3rd, March 9th, and April 20th, which is a significant difference in, time between, and I don't quite understand that. But I chose to go with the Wikipedia thing, and I found that the third to last episode that I watched was probably the very last episode that was written and filmed, at least, and I'll get to why. And it's one of the first details. It opens the Midnight Society portion with Gary kind of running into Sam, and it's awkward. And then Gary goes over and talks to, I forget who. I don't think it was Trevor. I think it was Betty Ann Tucker, not Trevor. Um, and Gary just says, we tried to make it official with Sam, but she didn't necessarily want to make it official, and that sort of thing, which is disappointing as someone who's been watching them over the last couple of months. Um, but yeah, but it's Sam's story, so we don't get much of Gary's disappointment, which is also kind of weird. At least it seems to be a little weird that we don't get much of that part of the story before Sam goes into her story. Her story is of illusion. This was a good one. So the story centers on a couple of characters, Felix, Amanda, and Colin. Felix is, I guess, a volunteer janitor at a hospital, or maybe he's an employee at the hospital. He has the night shift. It's called the night shift. And Amanda is a volunteer. I don't want to say nurse because while nurses can be volunteers, seems to be a high schooler or something, or maybe these kids are in college. I don't know. But she's more on the care of patients side of things. And then Margot is new to the hospital. She meets Amanda and a friend who I never got the name of, I don't think, ride the elevator up, and Amanda says, I'm really, really busy, and so I do the night shift. Then she meets Margot. She's introduced to Margot as someone who's new, and we'll have to follow her example. So that's the introduction of all the characters. And Felix actually ends up, we were introduced to him. He shouldn't have, but he did sign for a large crate that arrived at the hospital and then was taken down into the basement. He gets in trouble for that. And they has to go find it, apparently, because we next see him down in the basement where there's a little girl. I don't know if she's a patient, but she's not supposed to be in the basement, that's for sure. And so he goes after her to try to get her out of the basement, and he's attacked by a ghoul of some kind. We don't know quite who. And then we meet Colin, who's a patient. He's there overnight because he's getting his tonsils out in the morning, I guess. It doesn't seem like he would necessarily be there overnight, but he uses his position to try to flirt with Amanda, saying stuff like, well, you could take care of me all night, stuff like that, typical stuff. And then we see the volunteer who was talking to Amanda in the elevator also follows a girl, different girl. I think this other girl is disguised as a patient, and so the volunteers gotta get her back into bed, and so she of course is attacked, and then she emerges somewhat zombified. We're still not quite sure exactly what's going on, and then so the business of the night shift and keeping people in place and stuff, and there's a lot of kids at this hospital. Colin's roommate, who is got a broken leg, likes to roll around the halls in his wheelchair, and Colin uses this again as an excuse to get with Amanda. He says, we need to search for him. We can do it together. And she's like, look, I have responsibilities. You need to be in bed. Why are you doing this to me? But then they end up, I forget exactly how, in a blood storage closet. Or maybe it's it's a storage closet, and there are blood packets there. When you give blood, it ends up in a little bag, and then it gets shipped to a hospital. And they're not supposed to be there because they need to be refrigerated. And they're all empty. But she can identify them for what they are. I don't think it was safe for them to actually pick them up off the floor because you're not supposed to handle other people's blood. But she says she'll take it to Nurse Hanton, not Hinton, Hanton. I had to hear that a couple of times. Who is a full nurse, I guess, on the ward. And she's a little zombified too, but she can still speak. And then they inform her, and she pretends that she's going to alert the authorities, but she's not really going to. And so Amanda and Collins keep searching for the wheelchair kid. They search in the morgue. Colin wants to see a dead body, and lo and behold, it is Felix, who has a couple of bites in his neck and rises from the dead. They've left the room, but we see him rise from the dead. And I think that was the first moment that I think I recognized the ghoul when it attacked Felix. I just didn't put things together. But that was the first time that I recognized the episode as one that I'd seen, is the look on Felix. Felix is great in this episode. He plays the hammy, but he plays the vampire stuff hammy, but also dangerous and conflicted, but not like conflicted like Twilight, more conflicted like a classical Dracula character. And he flashes his teeth later on. I wrote down Jeff. Oh, Jeff is, I think, the manager or something. And he's the one who yelled at Felix in the beginning. And then Felix chases them into the stairs. He flashes his teeth. And he reveals the whole plot. There's a vampire there. He wants to slowly take over the hospital. He's not turning people into vampires, but since Felix was the first one he attacked, he went farther with Felix than he does with the others. He just wants to control the others, but he took too much blood out of Felix, and Felix is inching toward being a vampire himself. Felix has this line, which I also recognized. I'm fighting the change, but I can let it. I'm not quoting it exactly, but he essentially says, "I don't want to become a vampire, but I could let myself become a vampire because Colin is being a pill." And Felix gets angry at him because Colin's has no respect for the situation Felix finds himself in. Felix also shows them that the water pump that he thought he had signed for, he thought that was what was in the crate, was actually the coffin. And then Margot appears, and Margot is, it turns out, the alter ego of the vampire. It transforms into Margot and these other girls, but Margot is kind of his alter ego, I guess, because it's not like Dracula where he looks like a person. He's green and has yellow eyes, so he's got to morph into a human. Margot explains, she hasn't yet revealed that she's the vampire, but she explains that vampires only need to feed every 50 years. So it's like maybe she's the vampire's caretaker or something. But she's the vampire. And she goes after Felix after Amanda and Colin get away to finish the job, I suppose. But everybody else in the hospital is under the control of the vampire, so he has eyes everywhere. They're all trying to stop Colin and Amanda from escaping. They decide they have to destroy the coffin because it's commonly known that's how you get rid of a vampire. It's one of the ways. Amanda decides to distract the vampire while Colin goes down to the basement to burn the coffin. And Felix attacks him down there, but eventually comes around to helping out. And it's good to have a vampire when you have to lift a vampire's coffin because they're heavy and vampires are strong. Amanda, meanwhile, runs onto the roof. Vampire considers throwing her from the roof and then lapping up her blood. And we actually see a cityscape in this one. I think this is the first time, and it was, like I said, probably the last episode. I was like, wow, they must have had a budget on this one, because usually we don't see a cityscape. It's mostly the woods or a single house or a small town. Must have been a Canadian city. And he decides not to do that. And right before he decides to bite her the old-fashioned way, as he puts it, they shove the coffin into the boiler? Not the boiler. But it's an oven that heats the thing. And it burns, and then the vampire bursts into flame. And then, everybody in the hospital kind of goes back to normal. They're no longer zombified. But Colin and Amanda, who were never zombified, they remember everything they've just done. And Felix, because he went a little further along the road to vampirism, he remembers. So that's nice, and he's very grateful. He's my favorite part of this episode, Felix. The vampire's good. Amanda and Colin, not that interesting. And after the meeting, before Gary pours water on the fire, Sam approaches him and says, "This was a story about someone who was very busy but didn't want to miss out on things. And I don't want to miss out on things. And so she decides she wants to give their relationship a chance, and they sit nicely by the fire. And I'm thinking that was the intended final image, final picture to end the series on. They revived it, of course, a couple of times, but that's just really nice, them sitting by the fire. Now the fire is not just a campfire for stories, it's also a romantic thing. So that's nice, and that's why I think this was the intended last episode, because in the next episode that Wikipedia has as the second to last episode, the Jagged Sign, we're still back where Stig's not an official member of the Midnight Society. And it's a Kiki story, so I think this was probably between the Stig stories. Must have been. And the joke at the beginning is that he won't take the bag off his head. They put the bag over their heads, so they walk him through the woods, but they don't learn where the campfire is until they're official members. And so he says he won't take the bag off his head until they accept him for who he truly is. Meanwhile, Kiki tells a story about symbols that centers on Claudia, who is at her Aunt Yvonne's house, which is a kind of a retirement home for old people. And we meet Marjorie, who is the oldest person at the place, not entirely there, and really likes Claudia's hair. Now, Claudia naturally hopes that she can spend time with people her own age, and lo and behold, there's Kate, who lives next door. She's got a younger sister, but we don't see the younger sister after the point where the younger sister is used to kind of make the joke of Claudia saying, "I hope you're not Kate, because we're not actually the same age." And Kate ends up explaining, as they walk through the woods and find a symbol that looks kind of like the top of a dove, that it's painted on a cliff face. And there are stories about it. Kate says it might be an ancient burial ground, and she's scared to climb the cliff because it's dangerous. Claudia wants to climb it because she's looking for adventure. She like same reason she wanted someone her own age to spend time with. She wants to do something while she's stuck out here in the middle of nowhere. And so she decides to climb up the thing, and Kate says, "How are you going to climb up?" And Claudia indicates there's a guy up on the cliff. How did he get up? I'll go the same way he did. He got up, therefore there's a way up. Kate says, "No, he shouldn't be up there." And it's pretty clear he's a ghost. We can see through him, and I think Kate comes to that conclusion as well. They end up leaving the woods, but then once they're out, or almost out, some invisible force draws that same symbol on the ground in the dirt in front of them, and then the boy from the cliff face appears in front of them, and he's definitely a ghost. So let's see. Back at the retirement home, we witness Marjorie burning the cooking in the kitchen. She's having more and more trouble as she gets older, and then there's a fog on the window while Kate and Claudia are cleaning it up, and the ghost boy draws that same symbol on the window. So it starts to become somewhat of a menacing presence. He's following them. Marjorie has a sculpture of a couple of doves, and the symbol is a dove. And Claudia wants to investigate this whole thing. So, and meanwhile, we hear from Aunt Yvonne that Marjorie's nephew has decided to move Marjorie to a place where her medical needs can be met more easily, and I guess perhaps also closer to him or something, so that she can be taken care of better than most of the people, older people living in the home are very self-sufficient. And even at one point, I think Claudia or Kate knocks one of them over on the stairs, and it doesn't seem to affect them at all. But Claudia wants to investigate this, and Yvonne needs help packing things, so Claudia finds this sculpture of the doves and asks about them. And at that point, Marjorie sees the ghost through the window who seems to be summoning her, or summoning someone. Claudia and her are looking out the window. Claudia goes after him, and Kate is left behind, still helping, doesn't know where Claudia's gone, but is packing things and finds the love knot, which is a lock of hair that's tied in a knot, I guess. Marjorie had clipped it and given it to her young lover, her boyfriend. Then Kate also finds a picture that shows Marjorie, and Marjorie looks exactly like Claudia in the picture. And who's she standing with but the ghost? So Kate is putting these things together, asks Marjorie about him. His name was Joshua. They were going to elope, and they were going to meet at the foot of the cliff, but her parents wouldn't let her go, so Joshua assumed she wasn't coming, became distraught, and drew the symbol of their love on the cliff face, thinking that Marjorie had abandoned him. So Kate now knows what's going on, runs to the cliff where Claudia has been climbing, and Claudia is now in trouble, kind of hanging off the cliff. Turns out it was as dangerous as Kate worried it was, and that's how he fell off too, in the middle of drawing the symbol. So, but of course Claudia does not die. It's the equivalent of the usual running randomly around the house, the haunted house or whatever that happens at the end, toward the end of these episodes. A lot of, is she going to fall? No, she's not going to fall. And once they save her, they see that the dove symbol is finished. He never got to finish it, but now he's finished it. Here's what happens. Kate tells the ghost that Marjorie had intended to meet him, but her family wouldn't let her go. And that is how he manages to finish the dove on the rock. And then we see him and Marjorie, probably the same actor who plays Claudia, walk off as ghosts together, and we hear later that Marjorie had passed away quietly, and yes. So that's that. And then someone asks Stig what he thought of the story, and Stig says to Tucker, he says that it's hard to breathe under the hood. So he takes the hood off and starts saying, like, next time I could tell a story and you're going to let me in. That's the character of Stig. So, moving on to what Wikipedia represented as the last episode, which is just called The Tale of Badge. Not a badge or the badge, and it will become clear why. It's a Gary story. But Gary is late to the meeting, and we find out it's because Tucker stole his glasses. When Gary is late, but Tucker is there, Tucker puts on the glasses, sits in the main chair, and imitates Gary. And it is very funny. When Gary arrives, he says that he's not even mad that Tucker did what he did, because it shows that everybody has their little talents, including being an obnoxious dweeb, or whatever he says. So his story is the story of Badge, which is about finding your talents. And so there's a family, and there's a big sister and a little brother, as there often are. And the big sister's name is, where did I write it down? Gwen. And the little brother's name, the grandmother's name is Willie. The little brother's name, well, I'll find it. It's not important. It is important. The little brother's an important character. Trevor. So that's where I got Trevor. Trevor is the character in this story. He's the little brother. So it is Gwen's 16th birthday, I guess, and she's having a big party. But then little brother Trevor, who is a genius, comes home, and he has won the science fair. And everybody gets up and, well, her parents get up and they start congratulating him, and she hasn't even blown out the candles yet, I don't think. And so it is established she is overshadowed by her brother. We find out, quit band earlier that day because she didn't feel that she was good enough at the flute, and we later see her practicing the flute, and she doesn't seem to like it very much. But her grandmother has a special surprise for her, and it is a wooden box with Badge carved into it, and musical notes. And she brings the wooden box to Gwen's room and gives her a crystal called a jasper to wear around her neck. and says that it's been passed along from generations, from grandmother to granddaughter, which I guess means that it skips every other generation because it's not passed from mother to daughter, it's passed from grandmother to granddaughter. Which explains why Gwen's mother has no idea what's going on. Let's see. But they are interrupted before Willie, the grandmother, can explain everything. She's also got a book, but she doesn't open the book and tell her what's in the book because Gwen's mother comes to the door, says we have to talk about you quitting band. I don't like it, and the parents are going out. I forget where. Grandma's going out. I forget where. But the point is, as usual, the kids are going to be left alone, and she's got to watch Trevor, who is obnoxious enough, but it's not obnoxious enough that we want him to stay captured by Badge. He is captured by Badge. That's what happens, because he, not contented with being a scientific genius, he sneaks into Grandma's room. He unlocks her little cupboard. He pulls out the box that says Badge, which contains a crystal and a flute. And he blows the flute, and it's a flute, kind of like Gwen plays a flute. That's gonna be important. And he blows the flute, just one note. It's kind of a weird note and a weird sound, and the crystal glows green. And now this very, very good-looking, not good-looking as in handsome, but good-looking as in well-crafted monster character, like great makeup, some of the best. The vampire in Night Shift was pretty good too. Some of the best, I mean, in Are You Afraid of the Dark stuff, not like in general. So Badge emerges and kidnaps Trevor. He wants the Setter Wind, and I had no idea. I thought he was saying center wind or something. I couldn't, but that's what he demands, and the power goes out and the phone goes out in the house, and he says that Gwen must deliver the Setter Wind, and he kidnaps Trevor. He disguises his voice as Willie's to get her to trust him, and then kidnaps Trevor. He introduces himself as Badge. I wrote down he takes Trevor to the Space Cases Season 2 planet. The set looked like the planet that they crash on in Season 2 of Space Cases. And she manages to wander in there, and he explains he's been trapped for 600 years. He talks like Yoda with the kind of reverse, like Yoda he talks. That's how he talks. And he demands that she bring the Setter Wind, and she has no idea what that is even any more than I had any idea of it. But she goes back to the real world, and she finally opens the book, and she sees the generations of Setter Winds. I still not sure if it's a family name or a title, but her grandmother was Wilhelmina Setterwind, and then she is Gwendolyn Setterwind, and everybody in the portraits of the past Setterwinds are wearing fantastical centuries-old clothes, and here she is in her 90s clothes in this similarly painted portrait. So she realizes that's who she is. She is the Setterwind. She puts on the Jasper necklace, and then Willie gets home, and she brings Willie to the place where Badge is, and but she can't make the Jasper work. Her magic isn't strong enough. Willie takes Gwen's place so that she can escape, and tells her to play the song. Music is her talent. She must play the song. The song is written on the box. The notes are B-A-D-G-E. Badge. And it works. That is how the Setterwinds keep the Badge character trapped in, I guess, the crystal, so that he can't make mischief. And then Willie explains, first Willie makes Trevor forget the whole experience, and then explains to Gwen that her magic has many more facets that will be taught to her over the course of the coming years. And the prior to the episode, the Midnight Society had discussed what their special talents are, and Stig reveals his at the end. It's howling like a wolf, and he howls, and then of course other wolves in the woods answer him, and the Midnight Society disperses to escape the wolves. So that's the end of the first run of Are You Afraid of the Dark. I'm not going to look at. I might one day watch them, but I'm not going to. I don't have the nostalgic draw to them or the nostalgic interesting things to say about them potentially that I do about this first run. So and I don't know that I'm going to do another one of these watch throughs, at least not anytime soon. I will continue, for those of you watching in real time, to read the literature. I'll finish the Sherlock Holmes novel next week. The week after that, I've got a bunch of Christmas things that I might start recording now to play, and then I'll take a break. And I don't know what I'll read first in the new year, and I don't know what kind of movie or TV commentary I will do, or what kind of videos at all. I might just do reading for a while. We'll see. But if you've followed along with this process, thank you. I hope that you have enjoyed my commentary on this and the other 90s Nickelodeon and other shows that I've talked about. I don't really know why or how I'm doing this, but it's enjoyable. It's kind of like the blog. It's putting these thoughts down so that I have them for myself in the future if I wonder, what did I think of that? So it is at least helpful for me. For the last time, for now, pleasant dreams, everyone.